As a son of a patrician family, Johannes Gutenberg is likely to have had such an education, and his good knowledge of Latin also suggests that he was educated this way. Perhaps he went to the monastery St. Victor before Mainz for this purpose. In any case, Gutenberg later became a member of the lay brotherhood of St. Victor. In Johannes Gutenberg's time, there were serious conflicts in Mainz between the patriciate, the city's upper class, and the guilds, as the associations of craftsmen were called. Thanks to a new council constitution, the guilds have been given more rights over the old patrician families and thus more say in the sitting government. Soon there was a first dispute between the two parties about the election of a new mayor. In 1411, Friele Gensfleisch left Mainz at short notice together with over 100 other patricians. Only 2 years later, in 1413, Gutenberg's family left the city once again due to hunger riots. Eltville on the Rhine has an electoral castle, which was completed in 1347. Afterwards, the town was the residence of the archbishops of Mainz until 1480. Due to his family connections to Eltville, Gutenberg was closely connected to the town near Mainz. His family owned a house there. We don't know if Gutenberg attended a university, but he knew Latin well, and therefore his study is quite likely. In this context, researchers like to mention the matriculation, a public register, of the University of Erfurt, which belongs to Mainz. It says that in the summer semester of 1418 and in the winter semester of 1418 and 19, a Johannes de Alta Villa, Johannes from Eltville, enrolled there. It is believed that Gutenberg could have been meant by this, because his family had moved to Eltville frequently, as mentioned in the last part. In the winter semester 1419 and 20, this Johannes completed his studies with a baccalaureus, the lowest academic degree. Calling oneself after the family seat was common in Gutenberg's time. The Hof zu Gutenberg was located on the corner of Schusterstraße and Christophstraße in the old town of Mainz and no longer exists today. The document about this dispute is in fact the first sure proof about Johannes Gutenberg. His father had died in the autumn of 1419, and the dispute over the inheritance followed the following year. Besides Gutenberg, who appears here as Hähnchen, a Mainz form for Johannes, and his brother-in-law Klaus Witztum was also on their side against Plaster Blatzow. Our inventor represented himself with his own power of attorney. Thus he was of age around 1420, which in his time meant that he was older than 14 years. Johannes Gutenberg himself was not present at that time. The life annuity was widespread in the early modern period, because with it one could circumvent the church prohibition of interest. With the life annuity, wealthy people paid a certain amount of money to their town and received a regular payment for the rest of their lives. If the recipient of the life annuity died before the amount paid in was used up, the city could keep the rest. However, if the money had already been used up before, the city still had to continue paying for the life annuity. Mainz had to pay a whole series of such life annuities, which brought their loss. This was also one of the reasons for its high debts, which even led to the city becoming insolvent in 1456. This document is an Rachtung. The word Rachtung is an ancient German term for a contract concluded to settle a dispute or to bring about peace between two opponents. This treaty was about an agreement between the patricians and the guilds of the city of Mainz. Both had, as already mentioned, come into conflict with each other several times. Since 1429, the guilds had the upper hand and dominated the council. They decided to increase the taxes of the patricians. At the same time, they wanted to prevent the families concerned from simply leaving the city in order to not have to pay the taxes. Therefore, the patricians were now to be obligated to stay in Mainz for 10 years. Otherwise, they would lose their civil rights. Gutenberg is mentioned by name in the document, but was not in Mainz at that time. He and other patricians, who were also not in the city, were offered the opportunity to return without conditions. He did not accept the offer.